Hello everyone, welcome back to Base Damage. I hope you are all doing well and hope you brought your antacids because this video is going to be spicy. I've wanted to discuss this particular topic for a while, that being ban list. And yes, I said it is plural because I'm not just talking about the ban/restricted list for Weiss Schwarz. I also have ideas and opinions on ban list and other TCGs due to having played so many for almost 20 years now. For those who don't know what a ban list or restricted list is, it's very simple. Sometimes cards or certain combinations of cards see more play in the competitive scene. When those cards or combos become too oppressive that they dominate the meta, the companies responsible have to step in and tell the players, no, stop, you've done too much, and will put various restrictions on said cards. This can be anything from outright banning the cards, or even putting limitations on the number of copies. I'm sure many viewers here also have their own opinions on ban list, but there are two major points today that I would like to discuss and elaborate on in this video. Feel free to comment your opinions or ideas down below, but as always, do please listen to everything I have to say first before you try to dispute anything. Let's all have an open mind when it comes to discussing Weiss Schwarz or Yu-Gi-Oh! MTG, or anything else that we enjoy. Also to point out real quick, this is being scripted and recorded after all of the BCS 2023 regionals have occurred. Anaheim just ended this past weekend, so I'll be referencing the most recent ban list hits, but I'm also not sure if anything else will have happened to the restricted list before this comes out. Especially with Worlds right around the corner, I felt this was a good time to talk about this topic. But without further ado, let's get into it. So to go ahead and establish more of what this video will be about, it's the fact that I do not like the idea of ban list. As stated before, I have 2 points that I would like to talk about. I'll go ahead and say them here and use the rest of the video to elaborate on each point. Point number 1, in regards to Weiss Schwarz itself, is that we shouldn't even have a ban list to begin with. I feel this will be the more controversial opinion, but once again, let me cook. Please. Point number 2, the mentality that comes with ban list. I initially wanted to have 3 points for this video, but I wasn't sure how to word the last point. It's more of a collection of ideas and opinions that don't exactly fall into the other 2 categories, but I really couldn't find a focal point amongst those opinions, so I'll just sprinkle them in throughout the video. But let's get started with the discussion. First and foremost, while I do not like the idea of ban list, I do understand and agree with the fact that ban lists are always going to be a necessary evil. I know they aren't going to go away just because I make a video on them. Sometimes certain cards become way too oppressive way too quickly, good example being the level 1 Ayame combo. I'll come back to that in a bit, but to elaborate on the first point, we shouldn't have had a ban list in Weiss to begin with. Which, I guess to make my case for that, we need to go over a bit of my history with card games and of Weiss and its ban list. When I first started playing Weiss, around the time that the SAO Gun Gale Extra Booster dropped and everyone was learning what Last Shot Xenon was, I was introduced to the game with the knowledge that it had no ban list. This was already after playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And MTG for years. Having the ban list looming over your head always affected what decks that I or any other player would pick up. If someone thought their deck was going to get hit, they would try to sell it off as quickly as possible to avoid a major financial loss. More often than not, I ended up playing rogue decks, so I wouldn't have to worry at all about my deck getting sniped into unplayability. But every now and then I would make something a bit more meta as long as it was cheap. One example being when the Monarch structure deck dropped, and for $30 you could make a functional and tournament competitive deck. Sometimes with just 10 or $20 of additional investment for side deck cards or other fun deck cards. But if that got hit on the ban list, it wasn't really that much of a loss financially. But back to Weiss. For a long time, if we were scheduled to get a set that was already in JP and that set had banned or restricted cards, the cards we got were typically errated or changed to have completely different effects altogether. A couple examples being Junyo from Kantai Collection or the level 3 Marika from Nizukoi. There are many examples of those, and sometimes we just didn't get those cards. Like the World of Faded Colors from Haruhi. We just straight up didn't get it at all in the booster set. That is until the recent power-up sets got released after it got taken off the JP ban list, but that's whatever. This all changed when we got to the Batman Ninja set. One major difference with the Batman Ninja set was that it was an English exclusive set, meaning it came out in English first and not on the JP side. But I did have to double check, but JP still doesn't have this set from what I've seen. We already had several English exclusive sets up until this point, but this meant that unlike the JP sets getting filtered out or gone through already, English exclusive hadn't been tested by players to see what was broken or not yet. However, the big fucky wucky that caused Batman Ninja to bring about the ban list was due to something very special. There was a level 0 Gorilla Grodd that had an effect to summon a particular named level 1 Batman from the hand when it got frontal attacked. That doesn't sound too terribly crazy, but the problem was that there was a learn to play Batman Ninja deck that they were just kind of giving out for free at tournaments and stuff. And in it there was a level 3 Batman that got printed with the same exact name as the level 1, the one that the Gorilla Grodd could summon. Both read the name Batman Infiltration, so this meant, due to having the same name, a level 0 could summon out a level 3 at level 0, all because they shared a name. This immediately became an issue because there's no way anyone can deal with a level 3 on the field when they can't even summon level 1s yet. It was extremely weird that this happened in the first place. The creation of the booster set and the creation of the Learn to Play deck were supposedly handled by two different departments in Bushiroad. I'm not 100% sure, but the fact is that two different cards somehow ended up having the same exact name. Clearly this was not intended, but a simple clerical error, so it should be super easy to resolve, right? In my mind, the clear-cut option to resolve this entire issue would have been to add a simple rule stating that learn-to-play decks were not allowed for competitive play. Let's be real, if you're still learning how to play the game, then you should go to a locals and learn instead of going to regionals. I'm all for people getting into the game, but trial by fire at a regionals is not how to do it. Even in Yu-Gi-Oh, you're held to a higher standard at regionals and are told that you should, quote-unquote, know how the cards in your deck work and how to play the game. It's in the rules. I'm not joking here. If you call the judge over unironically and ask how to properly synchro summon, you're gonna get disqualified. Even MTG has similar rules. But let's get back to the initial point, the monkey in the room, so to speak. The interaction with the Gorilla Grodd and Batman should have been effortlessly resolved. I've already stated that Bushi has straight up changed or errated card effects before. They have a whole section on the English Weiss site dedicated to explaining what erratas have been put into effect. Everything from translation errors, misspellings, accidental omissions of keywords or phrases, even outright fixing entire card effects. Konosuba had at least 2 cards that had just the entire wrong effect conditions printed on them, and for a long while before the set got reprinted, players just had to know what the actual conditions for the effects were in tournament play. What stopped them from renaming the level 3 Batman? I'm sure there's a reason as to why it couldn't be changed, but this all happened so long ago, I couldn't really dig up any statements from Bushi regarding it. If someone knows the reason, do please comment down below and help educate both me and the rest of the class. Just please keep it as concise as possible. Despite the reason, I still don't believe that what they did was the right call, but once again, just my opinion. A simple change in the name or even addition of a word to the name would have completely and totally fixed the situation. Instead, a restricted list was put into play, stating that you cannot run the level 0 Gorilla Grodd with the level 3 Batman from the Learn to Play deck. Not even due to a powerful interaction or broken climax combo, we basically got a ban list instituted into the game so Bushiroad didn't have to deal with the issues of explaining an errata or even just outright saying you can't use the Learn to Play deck. So, speaking of, why didn't they just errata it? Let's go back to the banning of Ayame. It was a very powerful combo that could let you get off up to 6 attacks by pushing yourself to level 1, and if you added a +2 soul climax to the mix, you could push for a lot of damage. Most of the time, this put your opponent in a very tight spot while you had plenty of time to catch up. If you want to see like any videos on how this worked out, I'm certain those videos are still up on YouTube. And I get it, that's absolutely crazy and it needed to be dealt with. However, I still think the approach of outright banning it was not the right move. It's one thing if they said it was a temporary ban while they discussed what could be done to resolve the issue, but I very much dislike the ban it and forget it approach that they took with it, a topic that I will go into further discussion in the second point I wanted to make. I'm completely understanding if Bushi needs to take some time to figure out the approach they want to take with any card effect or errata. Some things just take longer to sort out, I get it. It's like with scripting these videos. I would be totally cool if they did just say it was a temporary ban until they could pass judgment on the card. That's perfectly fine. I made a video a while back stating how they could do a pick one of two list and would have actually fixed the combo altogether, but even that didn't happen. But since the Ayame could summon copies of itself during the attack phase, and that's what made the effect really broken, why not just add a simple condition to the effect of the card? Make it say during the main phase to the summon effect condition, and bam, you can't pull off the combo anymore. Done. It would be a very simple errata. Actually, to give a little bit of comparison, erratas are done in Yu-Gi-Oh! Quite frequently now, either because a card was on the ban list for being too powerful, or even in future reprints of cards, they try to explain certain card effects easier. A good example being Necro Valley. It has several reprints that all state different wordings due to it having existed in the game for so long, and the thing is with those wordings, it gives each different version of it a different ruling of how the card effect works with it. Whatever the most recent printing is the ruling you have to go with, basically. Sometimes they have to add restrictions to older banned cards to allow them to be playable in the competitive scene again. Certain cards that are way older, like Goyo Guardian or even Dark Magician of Chaos, had to be given extra restrictions and then reprinted to be able to be taken off the ban list to begin with. Konami is solely doing this with lots of other cards. It would just take too long to explain each one. Maybe a ban list was inevitable in Weiss regardless of what I say. It just kind of sucks that the ban list came out when it could have been avoided. But that is in the past now, and we have to deal with it. I'm sure lots of people will say that it was necessary for certain decks, but that leads into a whole different discussion of trying to decide what does and what doesn't need to be hit on each consecutive ban list update. Regardless of the game, be it Yu-Gi-Oh!, MTG, Weiss, whatever, you're never going to satisfy everyone, and the recent ban list update was a very good example of just that. I do firmly believe Bushiroad had every good intention of trying to balance out some of the more oppressive decks, but even as of the scripting of this video, the results of 6 additional different regionals have been posted after that ban list went into effect. There's now not a single SAO deck to be seen in the top 8 of any of them. Go check Weiss Tea Time for yourself. And meanwhile, Slime immediately got first place in Australia with the Muron combo after the ban list went into effect. I'm fairly certain the intention of the Alice hit was to slow it down, but it instead just killed it. While I kind of feel it was the opposite for Slime. I feel the hit that they did was to try to more or less kill it, but instead players just use something different to achieve the same exact result. We still have to deal with the same exact deck for the most part. It's impossible to truly satisfy the entire collective player base. Many people said the list was perfect, while others said it was a very poor attempt. I'm not trying to dispute one side or the other. Nothing I say is going to change Bushi's choices on the restriction, because, like I said before, I don't think we should have a ban-restricted list to begin with. Not just because I feel it could have been completely avoided, but due to something differently altogether. Bringing us to my second point, ban list mentality. So this gets to the deeper problem that I have with ban list, and that's the biggest issue with ban list in any game, regardless of Yu-Gi-Oh!, MTG, Weiss, whatever, is the mentality that comes with it. The quote-unquote ban list mentality that many players seem to suffer from is one that I've watched for many years. It happens when they encounter a deck or a combo that they have no way of being able to play around in that moment. And their immediate reaction to it is, oh, that card needs to get banned. The card, combo, whatever. Without trying to figure a way around it at all. And that's just something I don't think that's not an approach anyone should take. When we had the Refresh Point boys on a podcast episode, this was something that got brought up. Ben made a very interesting comparison to fighting games, how new characters get introduced or even bugs getting fixed. Typically the players have to figure out counters or new play styles and adjust to the ever-changing meta. I thought this was a great comparison, honestly, and I strongly recommend you go give that podcast episode a listen. Even Steve agreed with me on the point that players in any game, TCGs or otherwise, should try to find ways to adjust to the meta or their current format. Instead of going with the immediate ban it mindset, we both agreed we felt it hinders player growth, and if you don't try to find a workaround first before deciding that certain cards need to be hit on the restricted list, it really slows you down. You really have to do a little bit more thinking and be a little bit more creative in my book. Because I firmly believe that players should try to find their own solutions to the meta problems. Then if it's still an issue, yes, Intern Kun can step in. That idea is further strengthened by the fact that during the time that we didn't have a ban list, there were decks like Attack on Titan that were the top dog, with cards like the level 1 Aaron being able to bounce back to your hand, and it denied your opponents on reverse effects. Their climax combos were dead in the water. There were several other higher cards at higher levels that either denied advantage or were just very, very strong and oppressive. But the meta changed. Players used their heads and they swapped to combos that didn't require reversing effects. They realized they had to change up their decks and playstyles to be able to deal with AOT and its extremely dominant presence. This didn't stop it from winning Worlds twice, but still. But that's not to say that certain card effects don't need changes. I stated before that Konami does go back and fix card effects or make changes to cards for various reasons. Whether that be to try to reduce the number of cards on the ban list overall, or to affect rulings on older cards. It's understandable. Bushi could take the same approach with certain card erratas, and by doing reprints to fix those cards, it could help players get copies of older cards as well. I feel it's a win-win for everybody. You fix the effects and also increase people being able to get their hands on the cards without paying exorbitant prices. So if something does become too powerful, they could just do that, and then just that way you can go back and fix it that way. But just automatically writing off any deck, combo, or singular card as it deserves to get banned without ever once trying to find a workaround or solution is the worst thing anyone could do as a card game player. We should try to push each other to become better at whichever game we play. Try to encourage other players and even content creators to think outside the box. Be creative and ambitious instead of relying on a list to fix your problems. And that is going to be it for us today. Thank you very much for listening. If you made it this far, you're awesome. I'm sure not everyone is going to agree with my points, and that's completely fine. I would love to discuss things further, and if you want to, you'll feel free to subscribe or even join our Discord. Link will be in the description if you want to hit me up. Just look for Kade Fallon in the Discord and send me a DM. It's wide open. Whether it's to talk about this video or even another one, or even just to say hi, I welcome any and all who want to have productive conversations, whether that be Weiss, Schwarz, or any other TCG. With that, I hope you all have a most wonderful day, and please be safe out there. Peace out.